Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 9 of my audio adventures. Today, we are going to talk about audio interfaces, and if I have time, I'll probably talk about a couple other things. But first off, last episode, I talked about computers, and I accidentally neglected to talk about Macs. A little bit of an oversight on my part, but it doesn't really change much of what I said in the last video, because really, the difference between a Mac and PC is just a difference in preference. Don't listen to all the people out there that say PCs are better than Macs or vice versa. Just go with what specs that you need as well as what software you would like to use, because those are basically the differences. Some Macs are better than PCs. Some PCs are better than Macs. Macs do tend to be a little bit more expensive. For a little bit more functionality. It's entirely up to you. So yeah, on to audio interfaces. So this is where I get most of my musical equipment. It's called Sweetwater.com. Very nice group of folks. And with every order, you get candy, as well as somebody that talks to you through what it is that you're getting and why, and yada yada yada. So we're going to look at all the audio interfaces, and there are going to be quite a few to choose from, as you will see. There's Firewire, USB, PCI. All I know about firsthand are USB and Firewire. Firewire is basically USB, but a lot faster and using a slightly different connector, but I think most everything has a connection for that now. But USB tends to be a little bit cheaper, and there's a lot more of them. There are a ton of them. However, they still do have quite a hefty price tag on them. So do your research and make sure you are getting what it is that you want. To start off with, you don't necessarily need something that big. I would suggest getting something on the cheaper end. The audio interface I use is a M-Audio Fast Track Pro, which I don't think you can actually get anymore, at least not in that incarnation. But it was like $300, and it does everything that I currently need it to. If you end up thinking that you're going to be doing a lot of live gigs or maybe a lot of recording sessions, then you're going to want something pretty big, which we will look at in a little bit. But to start off with, something with 2 XLR inputs and then a headphone jack and a stereo monitor jack, and you're basically all set. On top of that, that makes traveling with the gear a lot easier. So, as an example, we're going to start off looking at the Focusrite Scarlett. It's a pretty simple setup. It's essentially what my M-Audio Fast Track Pro is. 2 XLR inputs with preamps, a headphone jack, several outputs of varying variety, and as well as phantom power in order to power up your condenser mics. Just about everything has phantom power now, so you're not really going to have to worry too much about that. But make sure when you purchase your interface that you pay attention to what everything has, and that so that you know it's compatible with everything that you're using, and that if it's not compatible, that you get the conversion bits required. Most of the time, that's just going to be like a 1/4-inch adapter or an RCA adapter, things like that. And then on top of that, you look for things that have this one has 2 XLR inputs that are also comboed with TRS inputs, so you can stick a 1/4-inch cable in there and it'll still work, which is a lot of fun. Record with your headphones. It's really interesting. You also want to make sure that you can that the audio interface can record in at least 24-bit quality, as well as 44.1 kilohertz. Better quality means better recordings. And make sure to look at reviews. I know that I said in one of my previous videos not to pay too much attention to reviews, but it's always a good idea to at least glance at them to see what it is that people have been saying, whether it's ridiculously overwhelming or ridiculously underwhelming. It kind of gives you a rough idea. So next up, we're going to look at the Mackie Pro FX. This is kind of what we use at the Arts Block for live recording of concerts and stuff. And at the end of the video, if I have time, I will discuss how we have our entire rig set up. Now, something like this is really cool because it still has the ability to plug into the computer by USB, but it's essentially a full mixing board. So it's got 16 inputs with mic preamps, a trim, all the faders that you're going to want, EQ bands for each individual track, and it's a full recording studio in one box. And although it's a lot bigger than the little interface we looked at before by about like 6 times bigger, it is still small enough that you can kind of carry it around the road with you, except that's a little bit more bulky. You definitely won't be able to carry it around on your back for very long, that's for sure. But if you're looking for something that can do live gigs really, really well and in a hurry, this is probably one of your better bets. Either this or something like it. I mean, it's small enough that you can tote it around in a small car from place to place, but not so big that it's going to take up an entire room. On top of that, not a bad price for $500, although that's comparing it to the $10,000 mixing boards that you usually see in a full professional studio. Oh, silly me. I should probably explain what an audio interface is. An audio interface is essentially a conversion kit. You use it to... It's essentially what you use to plug in your microphones and your speakers. It takes the audio signal from the microphone and it converts it into a digital form, which then gets input into your computer and stored as a audio file, which is usually a WAV file. From there, it then you do with it whatever it is that you're going to do with it, and then it goes out whatever form of speakers that you have plugged in, either immediately as you're playing it or later when you play it from the saved WAV file. And then it comes back out as sound, taking the electrical information and shoving it right back out of the speakers. Do you need one? Not necessarily, but you really should have one. You can get microphones that plug in by USB cable, but it's not as efficient. And on top of that, you've only got so much USB space that you might as well just have a USB interface which can plug 2, 3, or more microphones. So it appears that I've used up most of my time for this episode. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is how everything is connected at the Arts Block, which is a concert locale that I do audio engineering at. So try and picture this in your mind, if you will. First thing is a 24 input snake, which is located at the stage. That is where all the microphones get plugged into, as well as the direct boxes. From there, the cable goes all the way across the room, or the set of cables, all the way across the room and gets plugged into the 16-channel Mackie. From there, the master out is plugged into, I can't remember what it's called, but it gets plugged into this box, and then from there, it outputs to the house monitors for the audience to hear. And then, from the 16 out channels on the Mackie, it goes 1/4 inch out to a 1/4 inch in on a pair of Motus for all 16 channels, and then that is plugged by USB cable into a Mac that we have in the control booth, and then from there it records into digital performer as we record all of our concerts. So that is a sample setup, except in all technicality, I think that Mackie can actually be plugged in by USB. It's an older one, so I'm not sure. Technically, we could do away with the Motus and just have the Mackie and whatever that other box is that's plugged into the house system. But with all those extra boxes, it gives us additional level control for both the recording as well as the master sound that goes to the house. So hopefully you made some sense out of all that garble. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I will be putting up more of these within the next week or two. And I hope these are being helpful. Please let me know out down in the comments. And if there's anything that I wasn't necessarily clear on or that I could explain a little bit better, please let me know, and I will do so in a future video. I will come back to some of this stuff anyways at some point. And I would love to hear from you. Have a great day, and talk to you later. Bye-bye.